It is important to be mentally clear in order to have an inward calm. And things that are keeping us from receiving that inward calm are things like minerals and minerals that are deficient in our diet. And the highest vibratory, one of the highest vibratory minerals that we need in our diet in order to bring us that peace and that calm is called iodine. And iodine is secreted by what I like to call the emotional organ, which is also called the thyroid gland, the emotional gland, which is under control by the pituitary gland. But no matter how proficient or efficient your pituitary gland works, if you have no iodine, the thyroid can't do a thing. The most dramatic deficiency from a lack of iodine is a goiter, and a goiter is a mass that would be right in the front of your throat, which is the enlargement of your thyroid gland, because you do not have enough iodine in your body, let alone in your diet. And most people would wonder, why would your thyroid expand if you don't have enough iodine? But the thing is, it is deprived, so it is enlarging so that it could filter more of the bloodstream to pick up as much iodine as possible. So the bloodstream passes through your thyroid gland every hour and a half. Now, if you don't have enough iodine in your system, it is going to keep trying to filter through to pick up every piece of iodine that it can find in your body. And while it is doing that, it is starting to enlarge, and it creates what is known as a goiter. Japanese people, they have no problem with goiters because iodine is a sea element, and a majority of Japanese people get a majority of their diet from sea vegetables. We're going to break down exactly how this mechanism works, but this thyroid gland, which is right in the center of your neck below the Adam's apple, furnishes a secretion that destroys injurious, harmful toxins in the blood before it can enter into the brain. People who have plenty of iodine in their foods do not suffer from brain intoxications, nervous ailments, defective bone and brain metabolism nearly as much as people who rely heavily on meat, starches, chemically processed foods, preserved foods, processed foods, things of that nature. And it is also very difficult to preserve iodine in heavily cooked food. So even if you have something that's steamed or sauteed, cooking at high heat will allow the iodine to escape from the steam. Now, when low circulating thyroid levels are detected by the hypothalamus, that responds by releasing thyrotropin releasing hormone, or we could just call it TRH. The TRH stimulates these little dingleberries here. This is the pituitary gland. The TRH stimulates the pituitary gland to produce TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone. In turn, the TSH stimulates the thyroid to produce T4 and T3. Don't get too caught up in the TH, the TRH, the T4. It's just a mechanism, a loop that creates the thyroid hormone so they can get ready to circulate throughout your blood. And then once the thyroid starts producing the T4 and T3, it gets passed into the bloodstream, and it's carried to each and every single cell in the body. Every single cell in the body. That's how important the thyroid is. But that can't happen if there is not available iodine in the body. Overall, the thyroid gland is the body's sanitary security system for your brain and for your mind. It also enters into the lymph fluids to take it every single where in the system, like I told you before. And this is going to help with metabolism of all the organs in the body, because without it, organs are going to function much slower. Also, it pumps the same T3 hormone all over the body so it could get to the mitochondria and stimulate your mitochondria, the energy centers of the cell, to produce ATP. Without that, this is one of the reasons why people feel lethargic, why a lot of people are having a lack of energy, because you don't have the minerals in your body to stimulate the mitochondria to produce ATP, which is adenosine triphosphate. But we don't really need to focus on the word right now. We just need to know that it is the energy of life. Iodine is heavily concentrated in the uterus and the prostate, which tells us what? It's extremely responsible for reproductive issues, which could be infertility, impotence. It can also mean menstrual issues, things of that nature. It's heavily concentrated in there. So if you don't have it, that means you will, in the long run, or some people right away, you will have reproductive issues, whether it's prostate issues, uterine issues, ovarian issues. It's concentrated in the reproductive system, and it needs iodine in order to function. Another thing that can be an issue is fluorine and chlorine. These things are now a part of our water system, which means that if you do not have a proper filtration system, or if you are drinking tap water, you are taking in a lot of fluoride. That is not healthy. Even fluoride in the toothpaste, not healthy. Chlorine in the water, not healthy. Because what it does is the receptors where you're supposed to have iodine attached to the receptor. For instance, this is the uterus. There's a receptor here for iodine. Fluoride and chlorine have the ability to attach to this receptor and block iodine. So if you are taking in a lot of these heavy metals, you will disrupt your body's function to absorb the iodine. Those are two main things. Also BPA and xenoestrogens from plastics and things that are out in the environment now that are disrupting the hormones. But remember, fluoride, chlorine, you don't want to have those things in your water. You want to get a proper filtration system. You don't want to have these things in your toothpaste. Over time and certain amounts, it will attach to the receptors that are meant for iodine, which means your body won't be able to function efficiently. A person who uses iodine rapidly, they're called hyperthyroidism person. They're typically nervous and easily excitable. Hypo means your thyroid function is below normal due to lack of iodine, and typically these people are sluggish mentally and physically, and it can cause you to be dragging and depressed, frustrated, lack of emotional control, lack of self-expression. It can cause, like I said, infertility and impotence. It could be due to a lack of iodine. It can also disrupt digestion because your body needs to be able to hold in a certain amount of heat in your body in order to digest food properly. Absence of heat in the body means a person cannot properly digest food until the heat returns. You need iodine to keep heat inside of the body. One way to stimulate that is by hot and cold showers or baths. They stimulate thyroid function. That is one way that you could do it. Exercise, obviously, will stimulate thyroid function. Sea moss. This is available on my site. Natural source of iodine aside from sea moss, kelp, bladderwrack, and dulse. If you don't like to make the sea moss gel, if you don't have a high-powered blender, you really should invest in one so that you can have sea moss gel. You could just take a tablespoon or a teaspoon a day. This also, kelp, bladderwrack, sea moss, already packaged into a formula for you. You take 2 a day just so that you can get your daily supplementation. If you have hypothyroidism, then you would take 4 a day. But this is something that you want to deal with because it will disturb your emotions over time. And once it's disturbing your emotions, it's going to affect your physical body and it's going to break it down even more. The more stressed you are, the more depleted your body will be of minerals, which means you will not be able to function throughout the day. And that mental clarity we spoke about in the beginning, in order to get that inward calm, it's not going to happen if you're constantly under stress. If you're constantly depleting the iodine out of your body, that will create an issue. It might not turn into a goiter, it might not turn into something that extreme, but over time, it will have an effect. It could be on your energy, it could be a goiter, it could be impotence, it could be infertility, could be sluggishness, and also sporadic outbursts due to the lack of the emotional control. So hope you liked the video. Please share, Please repost. Thank you. Love you. Peace.